Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Theo Rossi about Escape the Field, which is going to be available May 6th. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks for, let's do this. Let's go.
Let's do it. I'm going to take a wild guess that you are, like, first of all, this movie is out of control. You know what I mean? But I'm going to take a wild guess that you are drawn to these chaotic worlds, Theo.
I like things that are a little unseemly, that are a little like, wilder. I don't think I'm doing the rom-com soon. I'd like to, but it seems that I get more into the dire situational stuff. I guess that's how people see me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was a fun one.
It was a fun one. What is it like working on films like this in a time where the thriller and horror genre is so elevated these days? Because it's been around forever, but it's next level these days, Theo, with some of the stuff coming out.
Yeah, it's funny. We were just speaking about this, right? I'm an 80s kid. So when I think of horror, I think of like Fangoria magazine. Yep. I think of like The Howling. I think of like, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I think of like, more gore horror, but it's like not real. It's fantastical, right?
Yep.
And then when I think of thriller, I think of like The Game with Michael Douglas. I think of like, going that kind of way. So this thriller horror thing, which is more grounded in reality of it all, this is a really appealing thing to me because I call it kind of like situational thrillers where it's like, what would I do?
Right.
What would I do if I was here? And this one came up. It was right at the start of the pandemic. I mean, we didn't know if we were ever going to film again. We went down to Hamilton, right outside Toronto. We went to this cornfield and it was very intimate, just a few of us. It was kind of like a Broadway, like a play in a way. And we were able to do the film on a shoestring budget and just kind of basically if the performances don't work, the film doesn't work. If the relationships don't work, the film doesn't work. And I think that to me is when I see films like this, it's like we're hanging on the high wire here of like, let's see if we can make them work. Let's see if we can make it work.
No, absolutely. But I'll tell you one thing I really love about this film, Theo, and you mentioned the cornfield. There's not many of you. I'm a big fan of the genre where it's kind of like of horror, where it's like conversation based. And, in this film, certain, like, I don't want to go into big spoilers, but certain characters say things to certain people where it kind of raises a red flag for the audience member, right? Where you're kind of like, why did he say that? Or why is she doing that? Right. Yeah. And I feel like because these movies, kind of like you said, the Howling, the Fangoria, the gore and the jump scares, I feel like people are scary. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you just said it.
Yeah.
So true. Right. And it's like, you got to pay attention, right? Because it's like, wait a second, could somebody be manipulating this? Or wait, is this happening because of like, that's scarier than someone coming at you with a hatchet.
Yeah.
What's scarier is, wait, do I even know what's happening to me right now?
Correct.
And that's, so when you have to pay attention, when you have to, like you just said, people are scarier as opposed to someone on the loose. It's more of a mental thing, of like in their head of like the mind control stuff of whatever. I love that. And I love paying attention to films. I actually call me old school. I like watching and listening to it. So that was a really big draw for this one.
And this is a popcorn worthy film, in my opinion. That's the goal, right? Like that is the goal in a lot of ways, right? To have kind of a movie where people could just sit back, relax, and just get scared the crap out of it. But like that's the point, right?
The point is, I think with films like this, which I love, is like, what would I do?
Yes.
Okay, this is a dire situation. Yep. They're all being given one thing. Which one would I want?
Yep.
Okay, would I go on my own? Would I stay with the group? Would I do this or would I do that? And I think that if you can ask yourself that for 90 minutes or however long it is, there's your enjoyment.
Yep.
You've now basically played the game.
Yep.
And
100%.
That's what I'm looking for in films, whether you agree with it or not, whether if you think the ending could have been different or this could have been different in the middle, the fact that you're even asking yourself those questions and you're intrigued the whole time, the movie wins. And that's the stuff that I'm interested in doing, the stuff that makes you think. Because I think that we're at a place where there's a lot of numbness going around.
Yeah,
where
I
just
agree.
like you just turn it on, and I can't tell you how many people I talk to who, you know, they come out of the theater or they come home from something or they just watch something. They go, "How was it?" And they go, it was good.
It was a movie.
And I go, "Yeah, it was good." And I go, "Right, but what was good about it?" And they're like, you know, "It looked cool." And I'm like, "It looked cool? A painting looks cool."
That
Like,
was-
what
I
did
don't
you
wanna- I don't want to say the specific movies, but I remember like there was a movie I really wanted to see a couple of years ago, and I asked my friend, I'm like, he went to go see it the week before me, and I was like, "How is it?" Right? He was like, "Yeah, it was a movie." Like
It's a movie.
I was
Right.
like, what does that mean?
I want more from that. Like, I
Yeah.
want you to tell me, like, what would I do? Like, you know, like what I loved when we did like Army of the Dead. It's like, well, what would I do if that happened? What would, you know, what would happen here? Right. It's like,
you could not watch that with your cell phone like in your hand.
No,
You put that away, focus. Like that movie, you blink and you miss like 5 things.
and you have, and again, it puts you in a situational thing of like, well, wait a second, what would I do here? And I think that if you can ask yourself that, then you're watching the right project.
100%. No, absolutely. It's so great. And I really enjoyed this one. And I have other general questions I want to ask you, but like when they get to watch this film, takeaway wise, like escapism, but what else do you hope they get out of it when they watch this film on the 6th?
Yeah, I think that it's just like, again, I think any film and any project today that you can kind of just get lost in it for a minute. So what I hope that people do is they get lost in it, not just the situational, but they just kind of get lost in the relationships, the who's who. It's like playing a game of Clue, right? It's like the who done it of it, who's responsible. Once you can start to have that fun, it's almost like playing a board game and watching a movie at the same time. So I just hope that people, you know, get that they can give their time and their attention because, you know, there's so many things going on right now. There's so much stuff out there. So it's like what we can give our time and attention to, I think is something that's got to facilitate more than just entertainment. It's got to facilitate thought.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think this film does. So I hope they get that out of it.
100%. Last question before we wrap up quickly. It kind of has to do with what you just said. There's so much content out there. The shelf life is non-existent for a lot of projects you've worked on in the past because of streaming services and, you know, social media and everything's around. Sons of Anarchy. When you were making shows like that and it was like 3-4 seasons in, did you have conversations with Kim or other people where it was like you were kind of thinking like there probably isn't going to be a shelf life for this show? It's going to keep going and going and going. Like I'm curious about that a little bit.
Well, you know, I think that's a rarity, right?
Yeah.
Like I look at that show, and no matter where I go, no matter what I do, people bring it up and they resonate with it. Now, I now know why, because, you know, we do the podcast where Kim and I, Tig and I talk about the show and we're watching it for the first time. If you think about it, that show the model that it was on was 6 months on, you know, or whatever it was, 3 months on, you know, 9 months off. And then while you're off between these 7 years, so it's like 8 years of someone's life. You're thinking about it in the off season of like, oh man, I wonder what happened to Jackson. What's Juice doing? And what's this and what's that? So now you're living with these characters for 8 years.
Yeah.
Now we live with characters for less than 8 days. We just watch them and we forget. It's over. We binged the season.
And then
it's
it's
over.
done. Yeah.
It's over. So with this, you're living with them. They're in your home. They become part of your family. They become part of your life. And then the storylines get ingrained in your head. So basically they stay with you forever.
Yeah.
Right. That has changed dramatically. And I think that I'm so fortunate to have been part of a show that, like, no matter where I've been in the world, I see that Reaper, whether it be on a t-shirt somewhere or it's a board game in Spencer's or it's here. It's like, it's always around.
Yeah.
And there's just not, that seems to be less now than it was then. That was really the golden era of, like, you know, the Breaking Bad, the Sopranos, the Wires.
It's in there.
You know,
It's in. Yeah. Absolutely.
Walking Dead, all that stuff. So it's just a different time. And I'm really fortunate that I was a part of something like that. And I think that there's a lot of great shows now. It's just the formula doesn't facilitate longevity.
That's so well said. And Theo, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. May 6th, people are gonna be able to see Escape the Field. And can you plug away quickly the podcast with Kim? Where can people check that out?
Oh yeah, Reaper Reviews. Yeah, it's on Patreon and it's free everywhere else. The audio's everywhere. Just go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you go, wherever you get it. And it's called Reaper Reviews with Kim Coates and I, and we're watching Sons for the first time. We're on season 7, and it's we have no idea what we're talking about, so it's fun.
Amazing. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Escape the Field, available May 6th. Until next time, it's Theo Rossi and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.